Hello, and welcome back. This video is about getting a better understanding of how focused navigation works in Widget Blueprints and how to add WASD support. And a special thanks to all my supporters. Thank you for helping me help others. All right, so first off, this is a fresh blank C++ project. And first we're going to create an empty level and save that. I'm just going to call this test level. I'm just going to leave it in the content folder. There's not a lot that's going to be created for this video. And next, we're just going to create a widget blueprint. User widget type. We'll call this WBP navigation. And since that didn't pop up to the top, we can go to editor or edit editor preferences. Down in the asset editor open location, and set it to main window. Close that. I also like to go to the compile here, set save and compile as always. Close that, reopen it, and full screen. So in here, we're going to add our usual canvas panel. And then I'm going to throw in some buttons. I'm just going to make these buttons a little bigger, 200 by, let's say, 80. That'll work. And I'll put the first one at about 100. So all of these are going to need to be variables. So I'll just set that now. I'm going to set this one back to just button underscore 0. And then hit Control D. Unfortunately, it didn't name it that way. It's kind of annoying. And I'll make like 7. I'll just name this one underscore 6. Throw it to the bottom. And then for each of these, actually I can do it over here. We'll do this one at 100, 300. The next one at 100, 500. Over here we can put this at, what, 500, 100. Oh, actually I want that at like 900. All right. Put this one at 1,000, 300, 900, and 500. And then this one just pop down there. So to get this on screen, we're going to make a custom game mode. So for that, we go to Blueprint class, we choose GameModeBase, and we can create BP game mode. We're going to make sure that our test level here is going to use this game mode, so we'll just set it in the game mode override. And then in this game mode, just going to our begin play so that we can create widget, choose our navigation widget, and then add it to the viewport. If we then hit play, I click on a button and use the arrow keys, you can barely see it. So let's go ahead and add a background to here. Just put it in there. We'll make this a gray color. Shift and Control, full screen. It does not look great, but that's not the point. All right, so now when I hit the arrow key, you can see that the blue focus rectangle is moving along with it. But if I'm over here and I hit the up arrow, you can see that it went to that one there because they were close enough vertically. But if I were to have this one a little over here, we'll put it at 1100 instead. I have this one selected, I hit down, it goes down there. So I have no way right now to get to the button over on the right from these things. If you're using a controller, you can use the stick to navigate as well. And you can go from here to here as long as these are mostly on a diagonal direction. So you can see the one down here, same kind of thing. So the other issue that we have in here right now is if I click in this background, the mouse cursor is gone. So if I hit my cancel, if I didn't click on a button initially, same thing, I click on the background, the cursor's gone. So let's fix both those issues. The other bit is I have no way. I'm hitting the arrow keys right now and it's doing nothing. And that's because nothing currently has focus. Once you give something focus with the mouse click, then you can move the focus around. So to fix both those issues, we can go back in here. And the first thing we want to do is get our player controller. Index 0 just means local player, even if you're playing multi. We want to call set input mode, and we have two options that work here. Both have the UI in them. So the game in UI is what's usually suggested, but UI is also just fine. So that will fix the issue where when we click on the background, the mouse disappears. So it won't disappear anymore. The second part of this, however, is we won't actually see the mouse cursor unless we also make it visible. So we're setting our set show mouse cursor, setting that to true. And the second bit is we want one of our widgets to be initially focused when we start up. So from our WBP, we can just get the first button. That was button 0. And then that will be focused immediately. We go in and we hit play again. And while you can't actually see it right now, the first button is focused. I haven't clicked on anything on the mouse yet, and you can see that I can move it around with the arrow keys again. If I click on the background, all good, except now we've also lost focus on the buttons. So again, if we just start this, the first button has focus, but you can't actually see that. The reason why that is in our project settings, and this is the default. You can go to Engine User Interface, and then there is a render focus rule right at the top. So navigation only is basically, we'll see it once we start navigating. If we want to see that focus immediately when we start, always sets it there. And then eventually you'll probably want to replace the focus with some other system, maybe a cursor that highlights it or different colored buttons or whatnot. In that case, you wouldn't want to select never. So with that out of the way, let's make the WASD work, which unless they snuck something into 5.6, I didn't notice. This still requires some C++ and some hard-coded keys. So to start, we're going to create a new class. We're going to subclass the GameBase or GameModeBase. We can just call this one my GameModeBase, that's fine. And we're using the game mode just so we have somewhere to put some of our new code. If you wanted to enable the WASD in your entire project, game instance is probably a better location because that would be for the entire project. But for this example, we can just go with GameModeBase because it's quicker and easier for the tutorial. So this will do a few things. Once it's done, we're going to create a second new class. So the second class we want to subclass is called NavigationConfig. So if we go in here and we look for NavigationConfig, you can see that nothing shows up. This is because the class is not a U class, which means it's not reflected and shown in the editor, so we have to do it manually. So instead, we can go back to common classes here and we'll just choose none as the parent. And we'll call this my navigation config. So with all that done, I'm just going to close the editor. For a change, I don't have to wait for that red bar to go away because I didn't run it through here. This is new project, so I'm just going to close these, open up our project. So in our GameModeBase, I'm just going to override begin play. And if I wasn't behind on IntelliSense, it would give me some squiggles I could use here, but instead, I guess I'll just copy this into the CPP file, do it manually. Class name is my GameModeBase. And in here, we're first just calling the super version. And then we want to get the slate app from the get function, which is a singleton. So we're going to use fSlate application. And we're using fSlate application, again, a singleton, which Unreal exposes a get function, so you can just get the pointer to it. So if we try to compile now, you can see that it failed because we need the fState application. Obviously, we need an include for that to work. So I'll throw that up here, framework/application/slate application. If we try to compile now, we can see that it has the same issue. So the reason why that is because it's effectively a plugin. We need to go to our build CS file. So we open that up and we can see down here there's a slate and slate core that are commented out, which you want to uncomment if you're using the slate UI. So if we just do that, we hit F7 again. It has compiled and we've gotten access to that class. So if you follow the Reddit link that I will leave in the description, you can see that someone like 5-6 years ago had offered a solution to this issue, and we're going to use that initially, so I'll show that. So we're using a map of type fkey to a EUI navigation. I'm calling it key event rules. And what it is from our Slate app, we're getting the NavigationConfig. And from that, we're just getting the key event rules. So this will also complain because we need another include in the same folder, so we can just copy that, change this to NavigationConfig. And there we go. So if we want to look at this, so I'm going to hit this, I'll hit F12, or you can right click and go to definition. So this is a map that's within the NavigationConfig class. And you can see here it doesn't have a U class in front, so that's why we were having an issue finding it in the editor. If we want to go to the code for this class, we can just hit any of these, hit F12. I'm going to go to the top where the constructor is, and there's going to be this red stuff, but it's, again, there's some IntelliSense auto-completion stuff it's trying to parse and not doing a good job. So we can effectively ignore that. It doesn't mean there's errors unless your code fails to compile. So you can see right here, they're doing an in place, which is the same thing on a map as add. One actually is just like an alias or the other. And it's setting a key. Again, this is hard-coded, so the left is the left arrow key. You can see that the gamepad on the D-pad is left, or the D-pad on the gamepad left also works. And it's just adding those here. There's a key action rules down here. There's also analog stuff we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's basically how the arrow keys in the gamepad, D-pad is being added. So we can do the same thing. So actually in here, we can just copy a bunch of these lines, paste it in here. We'll get rid of the D-pad stuff. And instead of left, right, up, and down, we want A, D, W, and S. So I'll just compile that and then see you back in the editor. Now back in the editor, you can see I forgot to set the map as the default, so I'm just going to go into the project settings because we may need to launch this again. In our maps and modes, I'm just going to select our test map, or test level. And that won't be a problem next time. We do need to also open it, so I can just double click it as well. So the first thing we want to do, because we don't want to go crazy running it and being like, okay, why isn't WASD working? This should be working. The video says it will work. All right. Our game mode here is not the same that we have in code. So let's open this back up. We want to go up to our class settings here. And instead of GameModeBase, we want to use our my GameModeBase. So with that done, then when we run, it already has the focus because I set it to always. I hit WASD on the keyboard, and there we go. So that part is working fine. So if you like that approach, you can leave it at that, but it's not exactly best practice. So instead, we're going to go back to our IDE of choice. So I'll just close this, close the editor. We'll go back into our NavigationConfig. And to maintain Unreal's naming standards, I'm just going to throw an F at the beginning of this. We don't actually need a destructor, so we'll get rid of that. Put the F there. In the CPP file, also we need an F here and here, and get rid of that. So similarly, we're going to copy this NavigationConfig into the header file. You may notice that there's no include here for generated. That's because this class doesn't have the reflection again. It doesn't do the generated in it like we see on a lot of object-based classes. Instead for here, we're just subclassing from, if I can spell public, F NavigationConfig. So if you're happy with just adding WASD to it, we can basically cut those out. We're going to throw it into the constructor here. And all this is doing is we're adding new entries to the key event rules that already exists. This exists because the parent that we saw a little earlier, actually it's still open here, this gets called first, and then our constructor will be called and add the new ones. If we wanted to override that, we could just call a key event rules.empty, or you could just set it to a new map and good to go. Alternatively, again, this is just a map with those entries. You could do a key event rules remove. And here you could do E keys. You could find the DPad and you could manually add, those 4 lines to those, like that. That would remove the DPad down. So if you only wanted to use the left stick to navigate the UI, you could just remove the 4 D-pads and that would work out just fine. If you don't want the left stick on the gamepad to move the focus, then you need to look a little further into the NavigationConfig class, which I suggest you do in general. In here, basically what we're seeing is we have the analog stuff here. The key event rules are actually being used. We'll just hit a Control F3. We'll go down here. You can see in the get navigation direction from key, it's checking the event that went in to see if it's in the map, and then returning the rule if it's found. There's a special thing for tab we'll ignore. And then there's also get navigation direction from analog. So without looking, and I'm not going to explain what all this does right now, you can see right away that B analog navigation is being checked here. So if we wanted to disable the analog check, which includes the left stick, we could also just go in here and do this. So now the left stick will stop working. The last thing we need to do is back in our GameModeBase here. We don't need access to this key event rules anymore, but we need to call slate app.set NavigationConfig. So if you want to see the format of what we should be sending, it shows that it's a shared ref pointer for NavigationConfig. So we can't just simply put in our fMyNavigationConfig, which incidentally we do also need to include. But you can see that's giving us a red error because the type name is not allowed here. What it's actually needing is some memory. So to figure out what we need here, if we don't just automatically know, or if you didn't have video to look at, we can go to this function. We'll hit F12, go to the function in the CPP file. You can see that the navigation config is being set to this new one. So if we then find this, I want to do Control F3 to get the next one. Let's go to the top of this file and go through a little bit until I see something that's relevant, like right here. So in the constructor for fslate navigation, you can see that it's setting this value first to a make shared of that type. So we basically take the make shared, we'll go back in here, and we'll use the same functionality. Oh, and of course I need the parentheses, and there we go. All right, so I'm going to compile this and see you back in the editor. And back in the editor, when we hit play, we still have WASD working. We can get over there. We can't actually, I'm hitting down, you can't get to the bottom. And of course, the right side we can't get to from here. We can go over there. And while you can't see it, I'm turning on my controller. I can use the D-pad. Once I click back in here, oops, lost my focus. I can use the D-pad, but now I'm hitting the left stick, and you'll have to trust me, but it's not working. And it would have otherwise. So the last thing we'll go over is, again, we have a situation like over here. If you have a main menu, got some vertical buttons, no problem. However, if you wanted to go from the top, hit the up and go down to the bottom, you need to set an exclusive navigation rule, just like we're going to set up over here. And same thing from this one, if I hit down, I actually want to go here, not down here. And from here, I want to go up to here. So for that, basically, we can go into our widget blueprint. And you can call the functionality from C++ in this case. I'm just going to do it in here because it's a little quicker. And for that, we want to find the buttons. So we have our button 3, 4, and 5. So for button 3, you can control drag that out. We can call set navigation. Actually, before I do that, the other way that you can do this when it works, so if I click on one of these, I have down here a custom navigation section. These each have a bunch of these things. You can look at the tooltips and figure out what they do. So we're not going to go over all that. But for this one, I want my down to be explicit. So if I choose that, I should be able to choose a control over here. These don't always show up, so that's why I was going to do it in code. So for the top one, we can do that. So button 2, or button 3 going down goes to button 4. If we go to button 4, we want the up to go back to button 3, and we want the down to go to button 5. And then for button 6, button 5 rather, we can do that one in here instead. We're just calling the same thing, set navigation rule explicit, and then we're just setting in the direction. So from button 5, we want to go back up to button 4. So we can just drag that in here. Make sure that's called. And then similarly, we had over here buttons 0 and 2. So I'll take out button 0 and 2. And then I need these both over here. So from button 0, we want to go up to button 2, and then we want button 0. We want button 2 to go down. I'll just leave that messy for now. So now when we run this, all right, so I hit down, I hit down again, it goes up to the top. If I hit up from the top, it's going down. So that's all working as expected. We see over here, if I hit up, it goes up and right. Hit up again, it goes there, and down go there. So for the button in the bottom middle here, we could set both of these sides. If you hit down on either of these buttons, it goes down here. But then when you hit up over here, where does it go? The answer is, just don't design your UI this way. If the button were over here to the left, at least it would make sense that going up and down works here. If it's over to the right, same thing. You don't really want it to be this ambiguous. But you do now have the tools that would make that work. And again, if you were using the left stick and I kept it enabled, you could see that diagonals, as long as they're diagonal, would also work. So thanks for watching. If you liked the video and would like to see more, you know what to do. And if you would like to support this channel, watch these videos 2 weeks early, or just want to download the project files, you can do so through my Patreon linked below.